I'm going to be solving the USACO 2018 December contest, bronze. Problem 3, back and forth. So Farmer John has two milking barns, each of which has a large milk container as well as a storage closet containing 10 buckets of various sizes. He likes to carry milk back and forth between the two barns as a means of exercise. So on Monday, Farmer John measures exactly 1,000 gallons of milk in his tank and exactly 1,000 gallons of milk in the tank of the second barn. On Tuesday, he takes a bucket from the first barn, fills it, and carries the milk to the second barn, where he pours it into the storage tank, and he leaves the bucket at the second barn. On Wednesday, he takes a bucket from the second barn, possibly the one he left on Tuesday, fills it, and carries it to the first barn, where he pours it into the storage tank. He leaves the bucket at the first barn. And this repeats for Thursday and Friday. Farmer John then measures the milk in the tank of the first barn. How many possible different readings could he see? So we see that the input is just two lines with 10 integers in each line. They denote the sizes of the buckets, and the sizes are in the range 1 through 100. So first of all, when we look at this problem, we want to solve this problem using a complete search because we want to see all the possible values and types of milk that he can take from the first barn and take to the second barn and take another one back, and we want to see all those combinations of those. So we want to use a complete search. And we also note that it doesn't really matter how much milk Farmer John starts with in the first barn or he starts with in the second barn. All we want to know is the difference in the amount of milk in the first barn. So we don't really have to think about that. So since there are 10 types of milk, and on Tuesday he's going to be bringing one of those 10 types of milk, and we're going to want to check every single one of those buckets, we're probably going to need to use some kind of for loop in order to check all of these buckets and see every possible type of combination we can use. And we'll need another for loop for Wednesday. But the problem is that these buckets are going to change position when Farmer John brings a bucket from one barn to another, right? So that means we're going to have to use some kind of array that swaps the two values which Farmer John brings from one barn to another, so that he can possibly swap them again on Thursday and Friday using an updated amount of buckets. So we're probably going to need to use an array that keeps track of the sizes of the buckets in each barn, so that when we do update the array, then we're going to be able to do the same thing on Thursday and Friday, so that he can take one bucket from Thursday and then move it to Friday, and take one bucket from Friday and move it to Thursday. So we're going to need for loops for each of the days from Tuesday to Friday, and we're also going to need an array that's going to swap the buckets for us. And at the end, we're going to need to count the amount of milk in the tank of the first barn. Right here, it says that Farmer John then measures the milk in the tank of the first barn. And we're trying to find the number of possible different readings that he could see. This means that we probably have to use a tree set or some kind of set in order to find out how many different amounts of milk he can have in the first barn after all of the combinations. And then we could do treeset.size to find out how many different readings he could see. So I think we can go to the coding now. Okay. So first we import alpha.util and value. And we'll need some kind of, since it's only two lines, we can just use a scanner to get our input. And then we also need some kind of print writer to write the file, on the file, the amount of different combinations Farmer John can make. So static print writer out. And we're also going to need probably a string. No, we're going to need a static int array. So static int, let's say farm. We're going to think of barn A and barn B for now. And we're going to need some kind of set to get all our answers and do set.size at the end of all our programming. So static hash set. Create our main. And here we initialize in and out. So in equals new scanner, new file reader, back forth. Out equals new print writer, back forth dot out. And we also need to throw an IO exception. Right. And then we'll have to do the initialization part. So we'll call init here and create a separate function. Static void init IO exception. And then we have to first initialize our int arrays. So A equals new int 10, since we know there are always going to be 10 buckets. And B equals new int 10. And then we can fill the arrays with the bucket sizes. So for int I equals 0, I is less than 10, plus I equals in.next int. And we can do the exact same thing for B. And then we initialize set, new hash set integer. And then we'll have to do our solve. Static with solve. And so we have to create four loops, right? So let's say our first for loop is Tuesday. So for int 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus, because you're choosing from one of the 10 buckets. So this is Tuesday. And then now we have to get one for Wednesday. So another for loop for Wednesday. And then here, what we're going to have to do is we're going to see the change in the bucket sizes. So Farmer John is going to take the bucket at A of I, and then he's going to bring back the bucket at B of J. So the bucket at index I in barn A, and then the bucket at barn B at index J. But what he has to do is he's going to subtract the amount of milk in bucket A of I in the first barn, and then he's going to bring back the second bucket from barn B. So we have to create some kind of variable to keep track of that. So let's say int Tuesday, Wednesday equals negative A of I plus B of J, which keeps track of the change in the sizes of buckets from Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we have the problem of updating our barns, right? Because the types of buckets in each of the barns changed because Farmer John swapped to one of these buckets in each of the barns. But the problem is we only have one type of array for each type of barn right now, and if we change it right now, and if we update it right now, we're not going to be able to go back to the original one every time the for loop runs, which means we're going to need another duplicate array for each of these barns. So we're going to need, let's say, static int A, B, A1, and B1. Let's call this A1 equals new int 10, A2 equals new int 10. And A1 and A2 are basically going to be our duplicate arrays. So A1 and B1. And here we're going to have to do A1 equals A.clone, B1 equals B.clone. So here we will be able to switch the values of the bucket at barn A and the bucket at barn B with these temporary arrays. So let's say, so in order to change it, we need a temporary variable to keep track of the bucket size at barn A, and the bucket size at barn A is now the bucket size at barn B. And the bucket size at barn B is now this temporary variable. And we need this temporary variable because this A of I is going to change. The bucket size is going to change as on line 50 over here. And then we're going to need 2 more for loops for Thursday and Friday because remember, Farmer John does the exact same thing again. So for int, let's say k equals 0, k is less than 10, k plus plus. And then we're going to have to do, oh, and this is Thursday. And then for int k and then l equals 0, l is less than 10, l plus plus. This is Friday. But at this point, we don't really need to update our arrays as we're not going to like change any buckets further on. So we have to do int Tuesday, Friday. The same thing we did on this line over here. Int Tuesday, Friday equals Farmer John taking away that bucket at A index K and then adding the bucket at barn B index L. And then equals. And then since we made both of these changes, for set.add, it's going to be tw plus tf, since it's going to be both of those changes. And then remember that we have to set everything back to how it originally was. So set the arrays back. A1 equals A.clone. Oh, and we have to do everything here too. This all has to be A1 and B1. This doesn't really matter, but. And then A1 equals A.clone and B1 equals B.clone. Since A1 and B1 are going to be our temporary arrays, not A and B. And then we can do out.println set.size, which should give us the number of unique possible changes in the number of milk. So we also always have to do in.close, close, and out.close. And yeah, we should be able to submit this. Okay, so let's see. Back and forth. Okay, nice. It worked.